Join us today as we dive into the penultimate episode of Season 3, Night Strike. Besides the welcome return of some familiar faces and locations from Knight Rider's past, we've also got an action sequence that's so iconic, it makes it into next season's opening intro. We also have a very personal connection to this specific sequence that you don't want to miss. Welcome to the official home of the Knight Rider historians.
Starts cooking with Knight Rider.
Speak of the devil.
Some hot secret weapons grab Michael's attention.
Oh, dear.
Can he settle the score? Friday.
We've got a new feature across the Knight Rider Historians YouTube channel, Super Thanks, not to be confused with Super Pursuit. With Super Thanks, you have the option to post a distinct, colorful, and fully customizable comment in our videos comments section. This shows the world that you are a super Knight Rider fan and will stand out amongst the sea of comments that we receive. Go ahead, give it a try. And every super thanks gets a super response from us. Press the thanks button. Just don't press the turbo boost. Production 58647, Night Strike. This episode was written by Gregory S. Dinallo and directed by George Fenady. It originally aired on NBC Friday night, 8 p.m. on April 5th, 1985. This was the 62nd episode to air, but the 63rd to be produced. Night Strike was actually the last episode filmed for Season 3. The synopsis reads as follows. When a shipment of high-powered weapons is stolen from a military depot, Michael is assigned to investigate the theft. And with that, let's dig in. In this musical montage where we first see KITT, this is reused footage from Season 2 is when they filmed this. This is the hardtop stunt car. We saw this tunnel a couple times in the series. We saw it in KITT vs. Car, and I believe we saw it in Last Night, and we see it again here. And this is a really neat shot because we see this exact footage in the opening credits, but there's a different image superimposed on KITT's monitor. This is the only time in an actual episode that we see this footage, which is really neat. By the way, the footage that is superimposed on the monitor is actually footage from the pilot when Michael and Devin are taking KITT out for the very first test drive. Whenever Michael plays chicken with the 10-ton semi, that's where that footage comes from. And we see various scenes of KITT's dash and whatnot. We see this one, this longitude. Oddly enough, this is from the Season 1 and Season 2 dashboard, not the Season 3. By Season 3, KITT didn't have this vacuum message center in the dash anymore. And pour one out for the Season 3 insert car. Now, even though we have one more episode to cover in Season 3, which is Circus Nights, it was filmed much, much earlier in the season. So like I said, this is the last episode that they filmed for Season 3. So this Season 3 insert car, after they're done filming here, it will never be used as an insert car again. It'll be transformed into the Super Pursuit Mode car. One of the two Super Pursuit Mode cars. This is the one that will be the full-time Super Pursuit car, the one that has the wings and the fins and all that stuff permanently mounted, not the one that transforms. So this is the last time we see this car as a regular KITT. And once again, I think the reason behind that is especially by this point in the series, this car was fine for an insert car, but it's pretty beat up. This is the car that was a hardtop car. They put in, a working auto roof mechanism, which is part of the reason why this overhead console sits so low, is so they could fit the mechanism in here. Well, it worked for a few episodes, and then they quit using it. And we know from previous episodes that this overhead console, you could see like a blue rag stuffed in it. And pretty sure it was because the roof was leaking because it wasn't sealed properly, because it was this big hack job and water poured in. So they had to put towels in the overhead console to stop it. And it was just probably too much of a hassle. So they decided for season 4, they needed a new insert car. So what are they going to do with this car? Well, it's still a perfectly good car. And, they needed to cut up a Knight Rider car to turn into this Super Pursuit Mode car. So it actually makes sense that they would choose this specific car to become the Super Pursuit Mode car. And one other thing, just as the light changes while he's driving, if you look up here, it almost looks like there's a wire running across here. And it makes me wonder if there wasn't a microphone in here. Because we know, especially, in Starsky and Hutch, and the Rockford Files, they, on their insert cars, they had microphones inside, right? It makes sense. They would have a microphone, at least one microphone inside the insert car to pick up Hasselhoff's voice, right? I don't think he was wearing like a lapel mic. It was actually a mic inside. So maybe that mic was tucked into the overhead console. I don't know. Maybe it's down here on the dash. It's kind of a mystery, but that sure looks like a wire going across there. And then we come to the host hotel of this survivalist convention, the Dune Drifter, right? Well, in reality, this is the Hyatt Regency in Thousand Oaks, California. You can see it looks pretty much like it did back then. Actually, it looks identical to how it did back then, right? Except for the signage. Pretty much the same. And we're introduced to a character named Sheila, played by Judy Landers. Now, Judy, this is her second and final appearance on the show. She originally appeared back in season 1 in Forget Me Not as Mickey with an I, Bradburn. And in this episode, she plays a character named Sheila. Now, Sheila doesn't have a last name spoken in the episode, but according to the script, her last name was Guthrie, so Sheila Guthrie. We actually spoke to Judy Landers a number of years ago about her appearance on Knight Rider. She said, it was easier to land this role because I had proven myself previously with the producers, Judy remembers. There were only about 4 other girls auditioning for that role. She said she remembered feeling scared and uncomfortable about modeling with these guns, but David reassured her that although the guns were real, they were non-functioning, with the exception of very few that the qualified stuntmen were using. She said she enjoyed playing this part. It had kind of multiple dimensions to it, more than just one side to a personality. She said it was always more fun and challenging as an actress to play roles like that. She was also really excited to work with some of the other guest stars in this episode, like Richard Hurd, who played Lyle Jastrow. And Judy actually had the chance off-screen to drive KITT. She said she remembers driving the car, the cast and crew were on a lunch break, and a stunt supervisor let her get in and drive KITT, and how much fun it was. So sounds like it sounds like she had a wonderful experience on the show. Like I said, second and last appearance in the series. And once again, we have Michael talking into his non-comlink. This is not the radio watch. Once again, he's wearing just a fake comlink. And like I said before, pretty sure he wears the fake comlink more than he ever wore the real comlink. And a complete side note, but man, look at those sideburns. They like grow into his ear. I think that would be uncomfortable. Probably tickling his ear the whole time. Anyways, I digress. So this is the hero car, the season 3 hero car. And we mentioned this in previous episodes, but throughout the course of season 3, you can notice how this front bumper has just kind of sagged more and more and more, especially on this driver's side. Just look how warped the bumper is right here and how much of a gap there is. Now, again, since this is the last episode produced for season 3, during the hiatus between season 3 and season 4, this car, along with most of the original Knight Rider cars that they were still using for film with, will get all new bumpers, the new more angular bumpers that George Barris will design between seasons 3 and 4. So this is the last episode that this hero car will have this bumper. They still use the same hero car for season 4, just kind of gets a little bit of a facelift. And for this final produced episode of season 3, they used 6 different Trans Ams. We have the hero car you see here. We've got the right-hand blind drive car. We've got the hardtop stunt car. The stock nose KITT. The other hardtop stunt car, the one that we currently own, which we'll talk about here a little bit later in this episode, and the Season 3 insert car. So in the background, that red Ford Thunderbird, is that one of the drone cars from Night of the Drones? We know that at least one of the red Thunderbirds shows up again in Season 4 in Night Racer. But does it show up here? It certainly looks like it could be the same one. So here we have Edgar coming around, almost hitting this commando, or this, not commando, the survivalist. Sorry, I was thinking Goliath. Anyways, the survivalist here, and that survivalist happens to be Mr. Jack Gill right there, making a cameo appearance. And then he comes around the corner and hits KITT. And, you know, there's damage that's not intended to these cars, and then there's damage on purpose. And obviously, there was damage to this car on purpose just for this one scene. This is that original hardtop stunt car, the one we've seen all the way back since Season 1. And I'll show you how we know that in a minute. KITT darkens his windows, and they have the footage reversed, as you can see, mirrored. And they actually have this problem a few times throughout this episode, which we'll point out. But all right, so this is how we know that the car that was hit was the original hardtop stunt car and not any other car, and certainly not our hardtop stunt car. Although, ironically, our car that we have does have extensive evidence of repair in that same rear quarter. In fact, that whole rear quarter on our car is all body filler, and if you pull the panels out from the interior panels, there's like 50 rivets in there. So it was definitely hit, but it wasn't our car. And here's how we know. So, you know, on these hardtop cars, they put in these fake strips, which you can see to simulate T-tops. And if you look, you can just see one right here, and you can see the back one here, and there's another one up here. Now, this original hardtop car was the only car that did not have a strip right here to simulate the T-top edge above the window. Our original car, which was a hardtop during filming, it's no longer hardtop, it's now a T-top. It was converted to T-tops by Universal Studios after the show ended, but that's for another day. But our car had a riveted on piece right here. So that's how we can tell the two hardtop cars apart at this point in the series. And there's a couple other little details, but for the purpose of this, we know that this is that original hardtop stunt car. Logan Ramsey has returned to Knight Rider. He was last seen as the judge in No Big Thing in Season 1. Again, second and final appearance. And don't worry, he doesn't chew his cabbage twice. This is the hero car. Michael and Sheila are ducking in front of KITT to avoid the gunfire. And there are squibs, and you can just kind of see them. They're squibs that they placed along the car that would pop and create the sparks. Now, back in 2004, whenever, I think it was 2004, 2005, whenever they started releasing the DVD box sets. For Season 3, the original DVD box set that they released, there was a number of episodes where they screwed up the sound effects or omitted the sound effects altogether. So, and this episode was one of them. So, on this particular scene in the actual episode, if you were to go and play it now, you would hear the bullet ricochet sound effects that you normally hear anytime KITT gets hit with a bullet. But on that DVD release, and I remember they had a recall for the discs. So the discs were recalled once they realized that there was an error and replaced with correct ones. But on those original discs, if you watch the scene, you don't hear the ricochet sound effect. You actually hear the sound of the squibs popping. So let's take a minute. Let me play you the sound effect as it should have been with the ricochet sound. And then let me play you the exact same one from those defect discs so you can hear kind of what the popping sound sounds like. And by the way, if any of you out there remember this event happening and you still have your original disc, you never sent them back in, the one with the incorrect sound effects, let us know. We'd like to talk to you. All right, here it is. Okay, so you could hear the difference, and if we zoom in, there's an even better look at those squibs right there along the car. You guys have missed it. So have I. But just barely, we've got a white wire alert right there. Ta-da! They're so few and far between this late in the series, but there is your white wire just barely sticking out. And this is reused stock footage from season 1? Season 2? I think it's season 2. I can't remember. And we talked about this in a previous episode commentary where we saw this, but again, it's my favorite Knight Rider Easter egg, so I've got to point it out again. The sign over here says, "Welcome to the Knight Rider." Very cool. And in the background, as Michael's talking to Kit, we've got a cameo by Harold Hal Frizzle, one of the Knight Rider crew members. He pops up in a number of episodes all the way back to the pilot. All right, so this brief scene right here is our second kit, the one that just premiered in 10 Wheel Trouble. We see it briefly here, and we're going to see it a whole bunch more here in a few seconds. But again, personally, this car probably means the most to me, so I like to point it out anytime it's on the screen. But see, then we change angles, and now this is the right-hand blind drive car, and you can really tell it's the right-hand blind drive car. Look how wide that seat is, and if you look close, you can even see an image of the stuntman's face sitting in there. And remember, this was the original Michael Chaffee hero car, and when you see scenes like this where it's plowing through stuff, flying in the air, crash landing, you cringe a little, right? Because this car was supposed to be, it was the hero car, right? It was babied, it was not involved in any stunts, and now for season 3 and 4, it kind of gets beat up a little bit, and it's sad, but I guess it just adds to the story of the car. And as you guys probably know, this car did survive. It's still around today, so it wasn't fatal, any of the stunts. We've got not Michael. There's a look. Wonder who that is. Any of you guys out there know what stunt guy that is? I don't recognize him. So even though Michael has already self-activated, or told Kit to self-activate and come rescue him, if you look at the background, Kit's still hanging out there. He hasn't moved yet. And then they switch scenes, and there's Kit still sitting back there, just letting Michael almost get smashed by 2 cars. And this might be, I can't tell, this might be Al Jones, who we've pointed out a number of times. He was just in Night in Retreat. He drove the Goliath. He drove the Semi, part of the Knight Rider stunt crew right there. And so we see this. The 2 trucks are barreling towards Michael, and then it's a commercial break. Look how close those 2 trucks are to him. And then when the commercial comes back, somehow Kit appears and saves him. But in reality, when you go back and you look at this, there's no Kit anywhere in sight. Michael would have been smashed. But no, somehow Kit makes it and saves the day. And then we have, of course, this pretty cool scene where the guy climbs into the roof and gets into Kit. There's a great scene in the blooper reel of this where the guy actually falls off of Kit because he didn't make the landing. So let's check that out now. And once again, here's more of that reversed footage. So not sure what happened with the editing here, but some of that footage got reversed of the window tinting, and now this here. Michael and Kit are entering the tunnel. This is the same tunnel that we see in Back to the Future 2, I believe, where Marty is trying to save the almanac from, Biff has taken the almanac, he's driving through, and Marty's on the hoverboard and he tries to save it. This is that exact same tunnel here. And then we cut to this scene. While it looks like it's the actual tunnel, this is in fact a miniature by Sessoms and Slagle. And there was a great video released recently on the Jack Sessoms YouTube page about the making of all the miniatures of this scene. So we're going to put a link down in our description. So after you're done watching this video, head on over to the Sessoms page and take a look at the making of this particular scene. Michael then turbo boost, comes in for a landing. This landing is actually reused footage from 10 Wheel Trouble when Michael and Kit jump over Curtis's truck at the very end. That's where this landing comes from. And then we've got the same helicopter that we've seen all throughout the series, all the way back to season 1. Just a very common, it's easy to spot because of the paint job, and we've seen it a million times in the show. The Anderson Precious Metals Depository in reality, this is the College of Canyons in Valencia, California. One of the most reused locations in the series. We saw it in Deadly Maneuvers, Knights of the Fastlane, Night of the Chameleon, Junkyard Dog, Wrong Crowd. It just keeps popping up. Really cool place. I actually had the opportunity to visit there a number of years ago. I can't even remember when it was, and walk around the campus. Just a really, really cool experience. All right, so Michael and Kit are approaching the Precious Metals Depository, and we've got the two guys, Raleigh and Fletcher, I believe are their names. And by the way, Raleigh, which I don't have a screen grab of, played by Jack Jack O'Halloran. There we go. Famous actor, was in the Superman movies and all this different stuff, but makes his one and only appearance in Knight Rider here. Anyways, remember back when we were doing 10 Wheel Trouble and I introduced you to our second car, the very first scene with our second car, and I said, just had a brief scene in that episode, but stay tuned because it's going to have one of the most iconic, it's involved in one of the most iconic scenes in just a few episodes. And this is it, right? This scene right here where you see the bombs blowing up on either side of Kit. This is one of the two kits that we own, which is just so cool. And this scene was just so cool. So cool, in fact, that it ends up in the season 4 opening credits, right? And it's also reused in Sky Knight, this whole sequence. So what's interesting is, our car was only used a couple times. The second car was only used a couple times in season 3. And this is the best look we get at our car with a season 3 bumper on it, because by the time we get really good looks at it in season 4, because this car is used much more in season 4, it already has the angular rubber bumper, the same one it currently has on it today. So this is the best look at our car whenever it had its original season 3 bumper. Just really, really neat to know that it was used, in this iconic scene. And this is still our car. This is the last scene in this episode with our car where it's just kind of driving by. There's a couple ways that we can tell for sure that this is our car. The biggest way is by this tow bar right here. So for some reason, our car, and I mentioned this before, but has a tow bar receiver that's different than all of the other Knight Rider cars. Now, the tow bar receiver, for those of you who don't know, was used to connect the Trans Am to a camera truck so they could pull the car and film on the inside. And most of the stunt cars did not receive a camera tow bar receiver because they were never going to be used for filming on the inside. For some strange reason, our car does have one, and it's one of the... Is it the only stunt car that ever got a camera tow bar? I'd have to look that up. But it's unique because it's a real stubby one. All the other cars that get these receivers are real long. This one was real stubby, and it was made of a larger square tube than the other ones. And then there's also a bracket, which you really can't see here because of the dust, but a special bracket on the backside, which we've talked about before. And the fact that, I know I said this was a Trans Am, but this is actually a Firebird. It's not a Trans Am, so it never received the Trans Am stone guards on the bottom. They never applied them to this car. So those are some of the quick ways we can identify that this is our car. There's many, many more, but just for the sake of this video, that's how we know that this is our car. Of course, then we cut and we see this wonderful stock nose kit, right, as we call it, because this is a factory Trans Am nose that they just cut out an opening for the scanner, cut out the fog light area. This is the last time in the series we see this car with this bumper. We have every reason to believe it survived the filming of season 3. And it was probably used in season 4, but we don't have any concrete proof of that yet. But my guess is if it was used in season 4, it received a proper Knight Rider bumper between seasons 3 and 4, because this is the last time we see this configuration. If you want to learn more about this specific stock nose kit, we actually did 2 videos on this channel not too long ago about the stock nose kit, and check it out. We'll put links in the description below if you want to check out the videos on the stock nose kit. This is a really neat scene. This is the right-hand blind drive car where Michael jumps out while they're traveling at speed. And this is actually one of the most iconic and most used production still photos, or this is where the production still photo came from. Let me show it to you. So here we go. So this production still photo, this is one of the most used production still photos to this day. You know, a lot of times you see articles about Knight Rider, they include this still photo. And this came from this specific scene in Night Strike. So all throughout this episode, we hear about Sheila's boyfriend, Tom O'Malley. And we finally see him at the end of the episode. And I only point this out because, once again, it's the reusing of a character name, right? We had a Tom O'Malley in Custom Made Killer just earlier in the season, and now we've got Tom O'Malley again. So either it was just a coincidence or they just didn't care. The Tom O'Malley in Custom Made Killer died, so we know it's not the same character. And to finish off the episode, Kitt's driving away at freeze frames, and that's the end of the episode. But if you look in the background, we've got a black and gold Trans Am right here. Looks like with the gold rims, this almost looks like an 83 Recaro Trans Am. That looks like those rims. Now, Hasselhoff did own and drive an 83 Recaro Trans Am to the set, but I don't think this is his car because he had custom rims on his car. And I believe he had them on at this point in the series. This could be his Recaro Trans Am's personal Trans Am, but I'm thinking probably not. But still, neat to see another Trans Am in the background there. Okay, with that, we have completed Night Strike. Now, there is only one episode left to cover in Season 3. The last episode aired for the 84-85 season, which is Circus Nights. So we're going to cover that next time. As always, thanks so much for watching. If you like this, please be sure to subscribe and share it with your friends. Thanks. We'll talk to you soon.